I'm Lara from 5 out of 4 Patterns, and welcome to the video tutorial for our new knot wristlet bag. You can see it here. It's super cute. It looks like this, and then you bring this strap through the other, and then you wear it on your wrist. Now this has multiple uses. Depending on the fabric you use, it could be for a formal event or something pretty casual. Now what I love about it is it's big enough that it can fit your phone and your wallet and your keys with no problem at all, but still small enough to just hang on your wrist and it's there, and you don't have a big bag that you're kind of lugging around. The other great use for it is if you're a crafter, if you work with yarn, this is perfect for that. It's perfect for crocheting and it's perfect for knitting. So this is a great gift for just about anyone on your Christmas list, and I hope you enjoy making it as much as I do. Let's get started. I've got my pattern cut out and ready to go, and I've got my tutorial. First, let's look at the pattern. Now, I've printed it out, I've cut it out, and I've got my pattern, my fabric cut out. Let me set that to the side. So I've got two linings and 2 mains. I've also gone ahead and adhered the interfacing to both the outer and the inner, so the exterior and the lining. The great thing about this bag, well, one of the many great things about this bag, is it's fully reversible. So pick a cute fabric for both. That way, if your style changes, you just turn it inside out and you are good to go. Now that we've prepped our pattern pieces, it's ready to move on to the tutorial. What you'll notice first in the tutorial is that it tells us that the seam allowance is 1/2 inch unless otherwise indicated throughout the pattern. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's move on to step 1. Step 1 says, place the outer pieces right sides together and pin. Now, you need to make sure that you've transferred your markings, as you can see I have done here, from the pattern pieces themselves, and we are going to pin around the bottom from point A to point B. When we're finished clipping this one, the outer, we're going to repeat this with the lining or the inner fabric as well. Okay, we've got them both pinned. Now we're headed to the sewing machine. We're almost finished with step 1. The only thing we need to do now is to trim the seam allowance and to clip our curves, which would be here, 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 and here. Step 1 is finished. Now we're going to turn the main side right side out. Now we're going to take this exterior portion and we're going to put it inside the lining. So we're going to open up the lining and we're going to put it in here. Okay. And we're going to line up all the edges with right sides together. So, and we have our markings, which are very important. So if you haven't done all the markings, transferred all the markings, then this would be the time to make sure that's done. sewing between the outer markings, which are over on, this is the outer, right? This is the inner, this is the outer. So we're going to sew around this way and around this way, beginning and ending at our markings. So let's go do that. Now that we have sewn through our outer markings, we're now going to sew the inner markings. Okay, so we're going to go from marking all the way around to marking. Same on the other side. Now, one of the things we need to make sure that we're doing is we're clipping our curves. So we're going to clip it around here. Do not go through that side seam there. We're going to clip here. It doesn't appear to be a curve, but it is. All right, now let's sew around this. If you'd like, you can trim these seam allowances here as well. We've done all of our stitching here. Now it's time to do the fun part. We are going to turn this bag right side out. So that means we're going to reach into one of the handle openings and we're going to pull the fabric through. Now this takes a little bit of maneuvering and a little bit of manhandling, but it can totally be done. Becomes an issue for you and you just feel like you can't get it through, take out some of your stitches here and just give yourself, that'll give you a little more room, or pull through the short side rather than the long side. We're going to push the lining or the contrast to the inside. You find on your first go around that the lining just doesn't want to lay perfectly inside here, you can increase your seam allowance on the lining only to 5/8 inch instead of the 1/2 inch. Now we're going to give this a really, really good press. So here we are at our straps, and we're going to turn each one in. This is kind of a memory press, because we'll be unfolding that in just a second. We're going to turn it in the 1/2 inch. You know, you don't want it to be excessive, just a 1/2 inch there. Okay, so it's beginning to resemble a bag. It feels really nice and sturdy as well. Okay, the next step is to take our pieces and we are going to finish our straps. So this may look a little intimidating, but it's not. So let's take one side. We're going to separate the lining from the main and on both sides. So the long goes to long and short will go to short. So we're going to separate those. There we go. And we're going to just turn this way. Whoops, let's separate that. Push that down, okay? If you need more stability there, you can always clip that lining down, okay? But I don't need to. So anyway, we're gonna go right sides together. So that means you're turning it, okay? You're opening up those folds that you pressed and you're clipping, okay? Now let's move to the other side. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to separate the lining and the main. Okay, and we're going to push that down and then we're going to do right sides together of the main or the lining, whichever one you choose to do first. Okay, at this point, you can go to your machine and you can stitch a 1/2 inch seam allowance across each of these. And then we're going to repeat that on the other side, but I'll show you in just a second. Okay, so here we are. You can see both of our mains have been stitched together. I'm going to trim that seam allowance a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to repeat what we just did on the lining, which means moving it around. So you can move it to the inside or you can move it to the outside. It's totally up to you, but this is just going to take some maneuvering. You're just pulling it around here. And unfold, making sure you're unfolding that seam allowance that you ironed. And repeat on the other side. So just push that main out of the way and turn it in so they're right sides together. And then we're going to go right back to our sewing machine and sew a 1/2 inch seam allowance across both of those straps. Again, let's trim that seam allowance. Okay, now just pull on your strap a little bit, tuck and match, tuck your seam allowance under, excuse me, and match your seam here. Do that on the other side. Tuck it in. That press, that's where that memory press is super helpful because you already have that 1/2 inch there. You can do the other side. You're just going to tug it. This one is the smaller side, so it takes a little more maneuverability. So you just have to be careful. All right. Now, if you find that your memory press didn't do well enough, you're just going to push it in there the best you can, and then you're going to give it a good. You're going to press it again, but it should line up perfectly. And if you did a good enough job on the memory press, you should be pretty fantastic here. Let's give this one another press just for safety. Okay, now we are on the finishing up part. All right, so you can see we have two straps. We have a long strap and a short strap, and they are ready to be finished, but we've got, you know, we've got openings on the side where we had to finish our straps. So we are going to move on to step 7. We folded in our raw edges of the strap openings and we pressed and we clipped them both. Now we are going, it's time to top stitch. We're going to start here and we're going to top stitch all the way around this main opening. Then we're going to top stitch all the way around here, and then we're going to top stitch around here. Now you're going to find this challenging. So when you get to this point, you're going to want to take your sweet time. If you still find that this was a little too tight for your machine, when you make your next one, you can always decrease your seam allowance or add a little length here just to give you a bigger opening. But the reason that this is so small is that we want this side, excuse me, let me get this thread. We want the long side to successfully go through the short side without it being too big. If it's too big, it just kind of flops around. So you just want to be careful. You don't want them the same height. This one needs to be smaller and shorter so this fits in. And I could show you an example. So here's a finished one. And you can see I've got the short side and the smaller hole. And so you pull this through, and you see it's not super tight, but it's tight enough to where it's not going to flop around too much. So if I put my arm through it like this, it fits really perfectly one inside the other. Now if this smaller hole was bigger, it would kind of flop, and then I'd have a big opening, and I think I would risk, you know, losing my keys or something small that might be in my bag. So that's the purpose of this side, the small side being so small. But you can certainly make it a little bit bigger if you need to. It's really up to what you're able to accomplish on your machine. And you know, that's what making muslins and samples are for, to figure out all the things that you might need to tweak for your personal preference. So let's do some top stitching. We're going to start with this main center point and then center section, and then we'll do the outer sections. Here we are. A couple of things that you probably noticed while watching me stitch is that I went slowly, and when I got to the straps, especially the small strap, but both of them, I turn my bag wrong side out. So I do that so that I can see the stitches really clearly on the main side. Now this bag is reversible, so it doesn't really matter. You don't have to do that. But the key here, especially on this short strap, is to take your time. Now, if you find that your pieces, as you're trying to connect these the openings on your strap here, you're having a hard time, wash away wonder tape can help. If you don't want to use pins, wash away wonder tape is fantastic for moments like that. So I'm going to turn this right side out, and you can see it's looking pretty good. But I want to do a final press. One of the things that I've learned in making bags, which I've been doing for quite some time, but one of the things that I learned that is really important is pressing your bag, like really pressing your bag, getting it nice and crisp looking It just makes all the difference. And I will say, in garment making, it's equally as important. Now when you get to these thicker seams here, really give it a good push. Use your muscle there, because you want to get that iron down really, really well. Now if you're using a thinner fabric, this is just a basic quilting cotton. If you're using a thinner fabric for both sides or for just the lining, you won't have as much bulk in those seams. Now, let's do the other side. We are almost done. Well, I would say we're done once we finish this. Okay, check and make sure that all of your threads are trimmed. And here we are. We've got our completed knot wristlet bag. The only thing left to do is to bring the long side through the short side, and voila, we have a really cute bag. And if we put it on, we are good to go. Voila. I love it. It's so fun and cute. This one's actually for my daughter. She likes to crochet, and since she's 6, she also loves cats. So we went for cats and yarn, and this will be her yarn bag. I don't know about you, but I love making bags. I don't get to make them nearly as often as I like, but this is a great start. If you've never made a bag before, this can get you started, and I think you'll find that you love making bags too. This is a great gift. It's a great free pattern, and I hope that we see a ton of these on our Facebook page. Speaking of Facebook, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. You can also find us on YouTube, right here on YouTube. So if you like this video and you're going to make one of these bags, if you will click the subscribe button, that will help us know that you are here and you are part of our community, because at 5 out of 4, we want to build a community that never stops sewing and never stops growing. I'll see you next time for the next tutorial. Bye.